Someone humiliates you in public. Your face burns, your hands tighten. Every instinct screams at you to fight back. But what if I told you the most powerful thing you could possibly say in that moment is just one sentence? And that sentence, used by the greatest minds in history, will not only disarm your enemy instantly, it will transform you into someone they can never touch again. Welcome back to Wisdom of the Stoics, the channel where ancient philosophy meets real, modern life. Today's video is different. It's not just about philosophy, it's about a skill. A weapon, actually, one that every Stoic master carried, not in their hand, but in their mind. The ability to respond to disrespect without losing themselves. Now, before I give you that one sentence, and I will, I promise you that, I need you to understand why it works. Because if you just memorize a line without understanding the philosophy behind it, it's like firing a gun without knowing how to aim. You might survive the moment, but you won't win the war. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are not going to just have a sentence. You're going to have a mindset, a complete Stoic framework for handling disrespect, humiliation and cruelty in a way that leaves you stronger, calmer, and more respected than ever before. And if this is your first time here, welcome. Drop a comment below and tell me, when was the last time someone disrespected you and you didn't know how to respond? I read every single comment. Let's grow together. Let's begin. Why disrespect hurts so much and why that's the real problem. Let me ask you something. Think back to the last time someone disrespected you. Maybe it was a year ago. Maybe it was yesterday. Maybe it was this morning. Can you feel it? That sharp, almost physical sting in the chest. That sudden heat behind the eyes. Here's something no one tells you. That feeling, that burning humiliation, is not caused by what the other person said. It is caused by what you believe their words mean about you. Read that again because it changes everything. The Stoics understood something about human psychology that modern science took 2,000 years to catch up on. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change. But if the critic cannot show this, then why would I change my mind?" That is not arrogance. That is armor. You see, most of us have been conditioned, our entire lives, to outsource our self-worth to other people. We feel valuable when praised. We feel worthless when criticized. We feel powerful when approved of. We feel small when dismissed. And that's the trap. Because as long as someone else holds the keys to your self-worth, they own you. Every insult is a leash. Every dismissal is a cage. The Stoics called this living according to externals, and they considered it the greatest form of slavery, not chains around your body, but chains around your identity. Epictetus, who was an actual slave before becoming one of the most celebrated philosophers of antiquity, said it plainly. No man is free who is not master of himself. And how do you become master of yourself? You start by understanding one radical truth. Other people's words are just air. They are sound waves moving through space. They have no inherent power, no magical ability to reach inside you and alter your value as a human being. The only power they have is the power you give them. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds great in theory, but in the real world, when my boss humiliates me in front of the whole team, or when my family member makes a cruel joke at my expense, it doesn't feel like just air. You're right, it doesn't. And the Stoics never asked you to pretend feelings don't exist. What they asked was far more practical and far more powerful. They asked, what do you do with the feeling? What happens inside you when disrespect hits? The Stoics described what we would today call the amygdala, hijack, that fraction of a second when the emotional brain completely overrides the rational brain. Someone says something cruel, and before a single rational thought can form, you are already reacting. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles tense, your mind narrows to a single primitive choice, fight or flee. In that state, you are not yourself. You are biology. You are instinct. You are, in the truest sense, not in control. And here is what almost everyone does in that moment. And it almost always makes things worse. They react. They snap back with a cutting remark that they'll regret for weeks. They go silent and stew in resentment that poisons them from the inside. They deflect with nervous laughter that signals weakness and invites more disrespect. Or they erupt in anger that confirms every unflattering thing the other person thought about them. Every single one of those responses has one thing in common. They let the other person win, not because the other person is right, but because in that moment you handed them the remote control to your emotions, and they used it. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the most powerful empire on earth, a man who commanded armies, negotiated with kings, and faced existential threats daily, wrote this to himself as a private reminder. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He didn't write that for a crowd. He wrote it as a daily discipline, because even the most disciplined Stoic knew that the instinct to react emotionally never fully disappears. The work is not to eliminate the impulse. The work is to create a gap, a sacred space, between stimulus and response. And in that gap, choose deliberately. The Stoics called this the faculty of choice, the hegemonikon, the ruling part of the mind. And they said it was the one thing that could never be taken from you. Your circumstances can be stripped away, your possessions, your reputation, your relationships, but your ability to choose your response, that belongs to you alone, always, unconditionally. Now, in that gap between stimulus and response, what do you do? This is where the sentence comes in, but not yet, because first I need to tell you a story. The man who could not be humiliated. His name was Marcus Porcius Cato, known to history simply as Cato the Younger. He was a Roman senator, a philosopher, a warrior, and perhaps the most unshakable man who ever walked the halls of Roman power. Julius Caesar himself once said that Cato was the one man he could never corrupt, never intimidate, and never break. Think about that. The most powerful man in the known world, the man who crossed the Rubicon, who rewrote the laws of Rome, who had entire nations bow before him, was afraid of one Stoic senator, who had no army, no treasure, and no political allies. Why? Because Cato had mastered the one thing Caesar could not conquer, himself. There is a famous account. Cato was walking through the Roman Forum when a man rushed up to him and struck him across the face. A deliberate, public humiliation designed to provoke a reaction that could be used against him politically. Every eye in the forum turned. The crowd held its breath. Cato said nothing. He did not retaliate. He did not threaten. He did not demand an apology. He calmly wiped his face, looked the man in the eye with total serenity, and walked on. The crowd was stunned. The man who struck him was destroyed, not by violence, but by the absence of it. Cato's silence was louder than any roar. His calm was more powerful than any rage. Later, Cato was asked how he could endure such a thing without anger. He said, "I felt no injury. Therefore there was none." 5 words. And in those 5 words is the entire philosophy we're exploring today. I felt no injury. Therefore there was none. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't suppressing. He wasn't a robot without emotion. He was a man who had done the inner work, day after day, year after year, and so that his identity could not be threatened by the opinion of another. The man who struck him was trying to steal something. Cato's peace, Cato's composure, Cato's sense of self, and Cato simply refused to give it. Now, here is where we build toward that one sentence. Because what Cato did in silence, we are going to give you the words to do aloud. Words that carry the same energy, the same unshakable, stoic calm, but also communicate something very specific to the person who has disrespected you. The words that change everything. You've waited for this. Here it is. When someone disrespects you, when they mock you, belittle you, dismiss you, or humiliate you, the most powerful, most stoically aligned response you can give is this. That says more about you than it does about me. 7 words. No insults, no apology, no escalation, no begging, no visible anger, just truth. Let's unpack why this sentence is devastatingly effective. First, it is disarming. The person who disrespects you expects one of 2 reactions, fight or retreat. They are ready for anger. They are ready for tears. They are ready for awkward silence. They are not ready for calm, composed truth. When you deliver this sentence with serenity and zero emotional charge, it breaks their script entirely. They have no follow-up. They have no power. The conversation is over, and they lost. Second, it is unanswerable. What can they say? No, it doesn't. That only proves your point. If they double down with more cruelty, every person watching sees them for what they are. If they go silent, you've won without lifting a finger. There is no rhetorical path forward for someone who disrespects you after you deliver this line with genuine calm. Third, and this is the Stoic core, it is philosophically true. The Stoics taught that a person's character is revealed not by how they behave when things are comfortable and controlled, but by how they treat others when they believe they can do so without consequence. Mockery, cruelty, dismissal. These are not signs of power. They are symptoms of pain, insecurity, and a wounded ego seeking relief at someone else's expense. When you say, "That says more about you than it does about me," you are not just defending yourself. You are naming reality. You are holding up a mirror. And most people, when they see their own reflection clearly, flinch. Fourth, it protects your inner citadel. The Stoics use the phrase inner citadel, a fortress inside, the self that no external force can breach. When you respond to disrespect with calm clarity rather than reactive emotion, you are building that citadel, brick by brick. You are training yourself in real time to be unmoved by what others think of you. And over time, this is the long game of Stoic practice. You become genuinely, deeply unaffected by disrespect, not because you suppress it, not because you're numb, but because you have done the philosophical work to know with certainty that your worth is not determined by anyone else's opinion. Now, I want to be very clear about something, because I know someone in the comments is going to say, "But what if the disrespect crosses a line? What if it's not just words, but behavior that needs to be addressed?" Great question. And the Stoics had an answer for that too. The Stoic framework for escalating responses. The Stoics were not passive. They were not doormats. They were not advocates for enduring abuse with a serene smile. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. Cato stood on the floor of the Senate and defied Julius Caesar to his face. Seneca advised emperors and spoke truth to absolute power. These were not timid men. The Stoic ideal is not the absence of action. It is the right action taken from a place of calm rather than chaos. So let me give you the full Stoic framework for disrespect. 3 tiers. Tier 1, minor disrespect, public or private. The sentence, "That says more about you than it does about me." Delivered once, calmly, then silence. Let it land, move on. Do not repeat it. Do not explain it. Its power comes from restraint. Tier 2, repeated or deliberate disrespect. Now you add a boundary, quietly, clearly, without anger. Something like, "I've heard you. I'd prefer if we interacted differently going forward. That's my expectation." Notice there's no pleading, no please, no question mark. It is a statement of how things will be, not a negotiation. The Stoics were clear. You cannot control whether someone respects you. You can control your proximity to people who don't. Creating distance from those who consistently disrespect you is not weakness. It is wisdom. Tier 3, disrespect that requires direct confrontation. When someone's behavior affects your livelihood, your family, your safety, Stoic philosophy does not require you to absorb it. Epictetus said, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." But he also said that within the sphere of what is within your control, your choices, your actions, your words, you are obligated to act with virtue. If confrontation is necessary, confront, but confront like a Stoic, clear, specific, without cruelty, without revenge in your heart, with the singular goal of justice, not satisfaction. There is a profound difference between those two things. Revenge feels good for a moment and costs you your peace. Justice, real justice, is administered without hatred and grants you your dignity back permanently. How to build an unshakable inner world. Here is something the self-help world almost never tells you. You cannot perform stoic equanimity. You cannot fake the calm. People will see through you instantly. If your composure is a mask rather than a reality. The Stoics knew this, which is why their philosophy was never just about what to say. It was about who to be. Marcus Aurelius didn't just recite lines in the mirror before a hard day. He spent years, decades, in private, deliberate practice. Every morning he sat with his thoughts, examining them, challenging them, training them. He asked himself 3 questions at the start of each day, and I want you to consider these for your own life. Question 1. Who am I likely to encounter today who will test me? Not to anticipate conflict with anxiety, but to prepare with wisdom. To rehearse in your mind, responding to difficult people with stoic calm before the situation actually arises. Question 2. What do I believe about myself that makes me vulnerable to their words? This is the deep work. Because the sentence, "That says more about you than it does about me," only truly lands when you believe it with your whole self. If deep down you are afraid the criticism might be true, it will sting no matter what you say aloud. This is why Stoic practice includes rigorous self-examination. Know yourself, your strengths, your flaws, your growth edges, with brutal honesty. When you know yourself clearly, you hold the only review that matters, your own. Question 3. Am I building the life that reflects my values, regardless of whether anyone is watching? The Stoics called this living according to nature, which meant living in full alignment with reason, virtue, and truth. When your daily actions reflect your values, your identity becomes rock solid, and a rock-solid identity cannot be threatened by a stranger's opinion, a colleague's dismissal, or a family member's cruelty. They are throwing pebbles at a mountain. I want to take a moment here and ask you something directly. Is there someone in your life right now who has been disrespecting you consistently, perhaps for years, and you have not yet found the language or the courage to respond? I want you to take a breath. And I want you to know you are not too sensitive. You are not too weak. You are not imagining it. You simply haven't had the tools yet. And now you do. Drop a comment below and tell me who this video is for in your life right now. You don't have to name names. Just, is it a boss? A family member? A partner? A co-worker? Let the community know. You'll find you're not alone. What mastering disrespect actually gives you. Let me tell you what this is really about. Because it's not just about having a good comeback. Every time someone disrespects you, and you respond with stoic composure, something extraordinary happens inside you. A deposit is made into an account that no one can touch. Your self-respect account. Not self-esteem, which is fragile, externally validated, fluctuating. Self-respect, which is earned by how you treat yourself under pressure. By whether you hold your ground not with aggression, but with dignity. The Stoics believed that virtue was its own reward. That a person who acts with courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance, even when no one is watching, even when it costs them, becomes someone of genuine worth, not in the eyes of the crowd, in the eyes of themselves. And here is the beautiful paradox. The moment you stop needing other people's approval is the moment they start genuinely respecting you. Not because you've performed confidence, but because you embody it, because you've done the work. Because when someone tries to diminish you, you don't flinch, not as an act, but as a truth. Seneca wrote, "The point is not to live long, but to live well. And to live well, by the Stoic definition, means to be free. Free from fear of judgment, free from addiction to approval, free from the exhausting cycle of performing for an audience that keeps moving the goalposts." That freedom begins with a sentence. That says more about you than it does about me. But it's sustained by a life built on daily practice, honest self-examination, and the unwavering commitment to respond to the world not from your wounds, but from your wisdom. Let's bring this home. Today you learned that disrespect hurts, not because of what's said, but because of how much permission we give others to define us. You learned from Cato the Younger that serenity under attack is not weakness. It is the rarest and most devastating form of power. You learned the one sentence that the Stoics would have used, and did use, in their own words, in their own lives. That says more about you than it does about me. You learned why it works. It's disarming, it's unanswerable, it's true, and it builds your inner citadel in real time. You learned a 3-tier framework for when to say more, when to set a boundary, and when to walk away entirely. And you learned that this sentence is not the destination. It is the beginning of a practice, a daily discipline of becoming someone who cannot be, broken by another person's smallness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one, so be one, starting today." Starting with how you respond the next time someone tries to make you feel small. And remember, every Stoic master was once a student. Every unshakable person had a moment of weakness that taught them where their strength was hiding. Yours might be right around the corner. If this video gave you something, a shift in perspective, a tool you'll actually use, a moment of recognition, please hit that like button. It tells YouTube this content matters and it helps us reach people who need it. Subscribe to Wisdom of the Stoics. If you want to keep building this inner world, we release new videos every week, and every single one is designed to give you real, practical philosophy you can use in real life. And drop a comment. Seriously, tell me, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to handling disrespect? Or share a time when you responded with calm and it surprised even you. This community is full of people doing the inner work, and that work is never wasted. Until next time, stay stoic, stay grounded, and remember, no one can take from you what you refuse to give.